What's going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we're going to be talking about the Fusion Legendary Pyxniel. We have a High Elf support legendary here, and as we can see, she looks absolutely incredible. Now I know a lot of people are asking questions about what should we do about Pyxniel. A lot of people read her kit, said it doesn't seem as good, and they're really trying to justify going for this champion. So what I'm going to do for you today is I have a fully maxed level 60 ascended fully booked masteried Pyxniel here. I did about 2 to 3 hours worth of testing. I'm going to show you everything I found out about this champion, where you can use her, where you can probably not use her so well, and from there you can actually decide if it's going to be better for your account or if you should go for some of the rares or epics that this fusion does in fact have to offer. Now, one thing that I am doing is I'm also doing videos on all of the epics and quite a few rares for actually the first time since I've been doing YouTube. Now, I have done a couple rare videos before, but not a lot. There are actually some very surprising rares, and I'm really looking forward to showing you guys those videos on the rares that are part of this fusion. Now the question remains, what are you going to do with Pyxniel if you do in fact pull her? And one thing I want everyone to remember and understand before going forward is all champions can be subject to a potential rebalance down the line. So if something looks extremely underwhelming, not saying this champion is as of now, if any specific champion is looking underwhelming, they can definitely be tuned up, and you're gonna have to really think about your account and say, is it worth me skipping this to have something down the line where this champion gets buffed, or any champion for that matter, and how much of a missed opportunity will it actually be for you for the fact that you actually decided to not go for this champion. Now, as mentioned before, there are lots of strong epics and rares, so that can definitely outweigh your decision and make it very clear whether or not to go for this champion, but I'm here to give you all the information that I possibly can so you can make the decision that best suits you and can help you progress the most. So with that being said, let's get straight into her A1 ability, Mistress of Glamours. What this does is it attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of placing a Veil buff on a random ally for 1 turn. Cannot place it on this champion, so there's only 4 other options depending on what type of content you're doing, or 3 if you are in the arena. This goes all the way up to a 50% chance once fully booked, and she's an attack based champion, so her skills will have an attack multiplier, and none of them are too impressive besides the A2 and A3, but we will get to that once we get there. Moving on to her A2 ability, we do have Grip of Winter. This is a 3-turn cooldown, once fully booked, 5 turns if it's not booked, placing a 60% increased defense and 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns, then attacks any enemy under a freeze debuff, placing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns on all enemies under freeze debuffs. So there's some synergy to be had here with a Torment or with someone like a Gurgo the Augur. If you can freeze your targets, there's a free weaken to be had from this champion. Now, one thing to note, there is no visible multiplier on here. As far as what this scales off of. If you look at the A1, we see damage based on attack. The A2, however, they probably just forgot to put this in here, but I can confirm, I did some research, I looked this up, and this ability does scale off of attack. It's a pretty decent multiplier, but the fact that the target is frozen and is going to take reduced damage is something to consider when going forward. So probably not ideal to be stacking this champion with full damage, just because it's going to be going straight into a champion that's already taking reduced damage from having that freeze debuff on them. Moving on to her A3 ability, we have Icicle Barrage. This is a 4-turn cooldown once fully booked, 5 turns if it's not booked, attacks 5 enemies at random, and I'm not really a fan of random, but I understand why they did this. Each hit has a 30% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn, has a 100% chance of placing a freeze if any enemy gets hit 2 times, so the odds are rather high since you are sending out 5 hits. Obviously, the lower amount of targets you have in front of you, the higher chance you have of actually placing that freeze, but there is always that chance that one target gets hit all 5 times, even though it is rather low. So as we can see here, we have a 20% additional buffer to all of the percentages above, and the only one it actually applies to is each hit has a 30% chance. This goes to a 50% chance, giving you slightly better odds of freezing the target. We are going to see once we start showing you some gameplay that this actually happens quite often as far as the freeze actually happening. And once again, I don't think this is a required skill to be booked, but we're going to go over the books in just one moment. Moving on to her passive, we have Frost Weaver. Whenever an enemy places a freeze debuff on an ally, has a 20% chance of stealing that freeze debuff and placing it on Pyxniel herself. Has a 25% chance of filling Pyxniel's turn meter by 25% each time they receive a freeze debuff, and has a 35% chance of removing any freezes on Pyxniel at the start of every single turn. If there are multiple champions in this team with this skill, only one will activate, preventing any type of getting duplicates of Pyxniel, stacking them on the same team, being an absolute nightmare for any Torment. So that's just pretty much a prevention tool that they added there. Once this passive is fully booked, you will get a 15% chance increase on all of the abilities you see on the screen here, and in my opinion this is one of the stronger things that you would want to book. If you did pull her and say, where should I be aiming my books at, in my opinion that is going to be the passive here, and we'll get into that once we start showing you some gameplay as well. Moving on finally to the aura, increases ally resistance in the arena. Now this is good, and you're going to see why this is good if you wanted to make some type of resistance team in the arena because of what you can actually do in the arena. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the masteries that were in fact used on this champion. We do have the increased accuracy in the support tree as well as the offense tree. Now most players are probably going to go defense tree and support tree because it's all about making Pyxniel a survivability champion. She has great base stats, which I will go over next when I show you the gear. However, I wanted to get a little bit of an edge on the damage because, like I said, she does have some pretty decent multipliers, although it would be a waste to actually build her full damage because of what her kit actually has to offer. So if you have the gear, I would recommend going offense and support like you see on the screen here. If you don't have the gear, defense and support masteries are probably the way to go. As far as the artifacts, I am using an immunity set and a speed set. I'm not going to talk about that too much just yet. You're going to understand why I did that once I show you some arena gameplay. But really quickly looking at our base stats, we have 18.8 thousand base health, 1090 attack, which is nothing crazy, 1200 defense, which is definitely respectable, 103 speed, which is in the higher threshold, which is really strong, 15% crit, 50 crit damage, 30 resistance, and 20 accuracy. Looking at this champion's total stats overall, we have 42,000 health, 2,300 attack, 3,500 defense, which is definitely high, 221 speed, 90 crit, 130 crit damage, and 361 accuracy. So I am going to be bouncing back and forth between content, showing you her skills again when I want to overview some type of new content. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to head straight into the arena, look for a Torment team, and kind of see what this champion has to offer against enemies trying to place freezes onto your team. Alright guys, so the first team we're going to be fighting is going to be the team on the screen here. We're facing an Arbiter, Harvest Jack, Torment, and Folly. We are going to be using an Arbiter, Pyxniel, Masteries, as well as Trunda Gilt Mallet. So let's see what this match has to offer and what I can show you guys that this Fusion Legendary can do in the arena. Alright, so as always, we're going to start this match. I do have this on 1x speed just to show you a few things. So, as you can see here, Pyxniel has an immunity set. None of the other champions do, and you're going to see why momentarily if it works. Attack up here. So as we can see, the passive actually did proc for Pyxniel, which means that even though Trunda Gilt Mallet got frozen, Arbiter and Masteries, one of them or both of them also got frozen as well. This was taken by Pyxniel's passive, and it was applied straight to this immunity set, which prevented those two champions from receiving any penalty from that freeze debuff. Now it is unfortunate that our Trunda did in fact get frozen. However, now what we can do is we can target not someone like a Folly, unfortunately, but we can actually try to bait this again and see if her passive will work twice, applying that defense up and continuous heal. Okay, so as we see, the passive actually did proc again, which means that someone else did get frozen, and they were pretty much saved by Pyxniel's passive. Unfortunately, we have that True Fear there, which could be a problem, and it could lead us to actually not win this fight. So let's try to get a freeze off on pretty much anybody. We'll click on the Harvest Jack because we know of Folly's passive there. So we froze 3 champions, only 2 of them are suffered it because Folly does have that passive, preventing him from taking damage. Now Trunda, hopefully we don't get a Shoot Fear. Let's roll the dice. Okay, it worked out in our favor. It went off. She completely blew up all of these champions here. And Pyxniel's passive did not work and the game looks like it's having a hard time registering what exactly is going on in this fight. Okay, now we have an A1 going off here. The Veil buff, I'm not sure where it went. Looks like the Veil buff actually didn't. Okay, there's a chance for it to go off, so that does make sense. Use the A2 here. Now, once again, just to see, let's look at passive here. And I think she just got frozen, so that might have just been a... I would have to rewatch that in slow motion. Maybe you guys picked up on it, but Pyxniel overall is looking to be a rather strong counter to Torment, even though she is RNG. And we're probably going to do one more Torment fight. I'm going to go over another point here if you really do want to maximize Pyxniel in countering someone like a Torment and what you can do. So let's try to find another Torment on our list here. Alright, perfect. This one came up rather quickly. So we have a Lysandra, Razen Scarhide, Torment, and Rhodos the Lost Groom. What we're going to do is we're going to start this out 1 speed again just to keep things running smooth. Let's use this attack up here. The passive once again did proc here, so once again we were saved. Arbiter unfortunately got hit by that freeze. However, 2 other champions did, and another beautiful example. We did just see Madame Ceres hit that freeze on herself and Pyxniel took it. This is looking like a really strong combo if I'm going to be completely honest with you. So let's see what we can do here. And the one thing I was going to mention before is in fact that if you want to maximize not using immunity gear on all 3 or 4 champions, as you guys know, if you are into the arena, immunity gear can be rather hard to farm. And getting 4 sets on 4 champion can take a very long time with the RNG of the drops and then the RNG of the rolling. So finding a good set for Pyxniel, and in my opinion getting one for your damage dealer, you can definitely alleviate a lot of the RNG going on with Pyxniel by having just 1 or 2 turn meter boosters, or 1 turn meter booster and your debuffer, giving them that RNG of actually getting frozen. And if you're using someone like a Trunda or anyone else that's properly geared with an immunity set, you will still do enough damage even without a stripper or debuffer on your team. So what we're going to do here is let's use the A3 just to see what happens. We do have, you know what, let's use the A2 so you guys can see the damage, even though it's probably not going to be huge. Okay, 4,800. The weaken was placed. Let's reduce the turn meter on Razen Scarhide. Now Trunda's going to go and do an absurd amount of damage there, killing Razen, almost killing Torment. And Arbiter is going to finish off this fight. So this is what we have going on, and once again, that's my recommendation on immunity gear. You don't want to gear a ton of champions in immunity. Pyxniel plus your damage dealer is the safest bet. If you want to get a little more risky, as we see in the runs I'm doing here, you can absolutely just gear Pyxniel in immunity gear, throw her in as that swap in champion against any type of Torment team, and you'll actually be doing pretty well in the scheme of things. One thing that actually is important to note is going to be the fact that even though she has an immunity set, she's not actually taking the freeze. So with the part of the passive that does increase her turn meter, unless there is a visual bug, she's not getting the extra turn meter from absorbing that freeze since it is being blocked by the immunity set. Now, if it did prove to be the point that it's a visual bug and her turn meter is actually getting boosted by 25%, that would be rather strong. Even with immunity gear, she's not suffering any penalty, but she is getting that benefit from it. So that's a situation where it would probably be hotfixed and not worth to be talked about, but as it stands right now, and from what I saw from my testing and this live performance in front of you, that does not work. So if you're looking for a benefit, the only benefit to the immunity set is what you've already seen on the screen here. Alright guys, so now that we've gone over the arena, let's go over dungeons. Pyxniel is a good support champion because she does offer that defense up and continuous heal, which is going to be big for any type of progression settings since she is providing literally increased defense, making you survive, which is also giving you that bonus to the healing with the continuous heal. But on top of that, she has the ability to freeze. Her being a Red Affinity champion will help a lot of people struggling in something like the Dragon's Lair, since Red Affinity is strong for stage 20 in the mobs there. We know the Horden as well as the Apothecary can actually prove to be an issue there. So having a support champion that's protecting your team and providing that CC of freezes, even though it is RNG, can definitely help a lot of players when going forward. The same thing will apply to every single dungeon, however not every stage 20 dungeon. You definitely have to keep in mind that affinity does play a rather large role in all of these dungeons. However, one thing to consider is the Fire Knight. Now she does have a 5 hit. There is a cooldown on it, but she does have something that hits 5 times. If you have a team and you can properly speed tune Pyxniel to always use that A3 on the Fire Knight shield, which is probably not going to be the easiest thing to do. However, you'll probably get a couple turns if you do speed tune it properly. But if this can happen, 5 hits is a lot of hits to be taking off of that shield, and can definitely help you progress there and make a solid Fire Knight team for yourself. So as always, outside of dungeon progression, which pretty much every champion in the game that is legendary is going to have some use for, also, Faction Wars is another thing to consider. You can use Pyxniel for Faction Wars. However, High Elves is really considered to be one of the easiest factions in the game, since you do get Arbiter, and Arbiter is absolutely amazing as a, I don't want to say a free champion, but a champion every player has access to in this game if they play for enough time and complete all of those missions. So Faction Wars, she can be used to you. However, it's not a really big talking point. What is an interesting talking point is actually going to be Clan Boss. Now, I'm sure everyone knows that when using lifesteal gear, you run into these opportunities where your champion isn't fully healing from the Mastery War Master or from something like a Giant Slayer. If you don't get the procs that you actually need, your champions won't be full health and they can end up dying that next round. What Pyxniel offers with her Grip of Winter, if this is fully booked, 3-turn cooldown. Everyone knows 3-turn cooldown is in fact the meta for the clan boss, since it's also on a 3-turn cycle. But you're not only giving yourself an increase to the defense, you're also giving yourself a continuous heal. Now, this isn't going to be a reason to let your team use stalwart gear. Unlike Bad L and someone like Grush, it's only 1 buff of continuous heal instead of 2, and it actually does make a huge difference between the two of having 1 or 2. However, this is a very good buffer for any team using lifesteal gear, because it can push your champions to make sure they're fully healed after each round if they are unsuccessful with landing that War Master proc. So she does have her use there. The 5 hit on the A3 isn't going to be as big. This could be big if you were using Giant Slayer. However, the fact that it's a 4-turn cooldown once fully booked and the A1 is a simple 1 hit, it's not enough to justify not using War Master on this champion. And unfortunately for the clan boss, her passive will have no effect on that, which is unfortunate because it's kind of the highlight of her kit. So while fully booking her A2 will have some use in the clan boss, this is more going to be geared towards early to mid game players rather than end game players, unless you personally know that you're consistently wiping, not having enough damage. This will only really apply to endgame if you are consistently wiping because your team isn't fully healing because of unlucky War Master procs, and we already went over that point, but that would be the only condition that I could personally see as far as clan boss and where you can actually use this champion. Alright guys, that is going to wrap up my video here for you today. Hopefully this kind of helped you guys in making your decision whether or not you're going to fuse Pyxniel or not fuse Pyxniel. As mentioned, while you may not have found a use for her after watching this video, keep in mind, once again, as I talked about in the beginning of the video, this champion can be reworked, she can be rebalanced, and it's not that far-fetched after seeing her kit to say that's impossible to happen. While it is unfortunate that they have to make such changes like that, pretty much every game goes through balancing and rebalancing when anything new comes out, and Raid is no different than that. So give me your feedback. She looks great, her aesthetics are absolutely incredible here, and I don't believe we went over that yet, but for me, this means a lot to the game. And it's a big reason why I play, how the champions actually look, and I'm definitely going to be fusing this champion, even though there are some very strong epics and rare champions as well. I look forward to going over the rest of those with you guys. Give me your feedback in the comments. I'm really interested in what you guys think about this champion, about this fusion overall. I'm going to be reading through as many as I can and commenting and responding to as many as I can as well. Don't forget guys, if you like this content, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss my next video, and I will see all of you lovely people in my next upload.